Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 772 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened across NXT and AEW over the last week. AEW, of course, is building to not one, but two significant shows, Forbidden Door and All Out. NXT building for its Heatwave special event, and there is a ton happening between both of these brands, so we have an absolute ton to discuss on today's show. This, of course, is the second of 4 episodes of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, all performance-enhancing audio hitting your ear holes this week. We already have your 2025 WWE SummerSlam Ultimate Preview in the podcast feed. Make sure you listen to that. You can also find us, by the way, in addition to everywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us on YouTube at Getting Overcast, full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews, all on YouTube at Getting Overcast. But as I said, this is the second of 4 episodes this week. We will be back both Saturday and Sunday with your WWE SummerSlam instant analysis, one each for night 1 and night 2. So make sure, if you're a first-time listener, if you're an occasional listener, you hit that subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate that. And because it is SummerSlam weekend, there are tons of interactive opportunities for you with us on social media. So follow at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. You will get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will do our best to utilize them on air, and we will have pre- and post-show polls surrounding both nights of SummerSlam for all of you, our Getting Overheads, to vote. Those will factor into our final analysis on the instant analysis episodes. Again, coming out Saturday night and Sunday night as soon as SummerSlam goes off the air. So already a lot of work in this week, plenty of work still to come. Glad that you're with us for all of it, at least that is my hope. As we get further into the show, allow the Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And please don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. This is a free show. It's an ad-free show. This is our only way of generating a bit of revenue, and we would greatly appreciate if you support us. I said the only way. There's actually another way. On our social media accounts, if you click our link tree and you look at all the ways you can subscribe to us, there's also a link in there, by the way, for Fanatics. And if you want to purchase any WWE Shop merchandise, if you do it through that link, it's the exact same price for you. You can use your same coupons, the whole deal, but we get 10% cut. So if you're buying any WWE merch, you can do that and support the show as well. We would certainly appreciate it too. As I said at the start, this is an NXT and AEW episode, so we will be discussing both brands one after another. There are timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around if you so choose. As always, I hope you listen to the entire show. Kicking off with NXT as we usually do. The show opened Tuesday with a 10-bell salute for Hulk Hogan. It wasn't just NXT talent out there either. Evolve, seemingly some LFG people as well. Basically, it was the entire developmental roster. Jelly Roll was also there. He was continuing his training in Orlando throughout this entire week, leading into SummerSlam. So it was pretty cool that he took in the show. Video package on top of that. So the first 10 minutes of NXT were pretty much empty again. Now, I'm convinced that there's going to be something on night 1 of SummerSlam. It is in the New York, New Jersey area. I guess we will find out on Saturday. Let's get to what actually happened on the show. Javon Evans, he was feeling the vibe backstage, rotating between dapping up the faces, shit-talking High Rise, and then overhearing Chase U talk about taking risks. Then he hit the ring excited about The Undertaker's advice last week to go after the big dog. Before he could call anyone out, Trick Williams entered, assuming he was the big dog. Trick said that he beat Javon last time they fought, and now he's hotter than ever. Evans countered, "I wasn't even talking about your ass," saying he was actually, of course, referring to Oba Femi. Williams said Femi wished he was him, so he might as well become a two-time champion and grab back the NXT title as well. Out came Wes Lee and High Rise. They got Trick's back, talking shit, threatening 4-on-1. Javon swung at Wes, got stomped out, ate a cardiac kick, and the match, of course, got set for later. The heels commiserated backstage, with Wes hoping Trick would get his guys a TNA Tag Team title challenge at some point. Now, I enjoyed the setup for this. The segment progression worked. Ultimately, the result, getting the match, that was all solid. But there was something about it that just didn't completely come together. Maybe it's Javon still rushing his promos and not speaking as clearly in the ring as he does backstage. Maybe it's the idea of High Rise fully having Trick's back without much reason for that ever being provided. I know they did say they buried the hatchet, but they've been on screen multiple times together over the last month plus, and it's just like, why? Why do you suddenly have these dudes support? And by the way, the support of First Class over in TNA Wrestling as well, despite not being part of either of those groups. I just wish it was a little bit tighter, more cohesive. But again, it's the right direction for these guys, and it's better than most of what we've gotten in the main event men's division in NXT in 2025. So it's definitely heading in the right direction. So we had Javon against Wes. Evans attacked Lee with a tope suicida during his entrance. Wes somehow did a standing corkscrew senton during commercial, which is crazy athleticism that's required just to be able to do that. Javon answered with a springing snap German suplex, Superman punch, and the bouncing spin kick off the ropes that needs a name. Lee came back with a tornado DDT and a brainbuster, but Evans put him in a tree of woe and hit a flip over coast to coast, which was crazy. And then his frog splash, and he got a false finish. Javon avoided high-rise interference and hit a sky-high tope con hero, splashing both of the dudes ringside. Then he basically kipped up out of a small package, which was really cool, only to eat a cardiac kick for a rope break on the cover, not even because of his effort. Wes pulled his legs too far. Javon caught him distracted with a regular cutter and then a double jump cutter to get the win. And I just want to say briefly, I much prefer his, like, I don't know what the move is off the top of my head, but it's like the tornillo splash. To me, is a better finisher because it really shows his athleticism than this double jump cutter. But I guess with Wes, maybe this was a little bit more impactful. Femi appeared in the crow's nest, holding up his title, with Williams standing on the commentary table doing the same for a three-way standoff to end the segment. This was the exact type of show-off match Javon badly needed just to reestablish himself as a legitimate contender for these titles. I remain confused as to why he has not been steadily brought up to the roster through the tag team division, then the mid-card title. Just given his age and his ability to captivate, you could get so much runway getting 6 to 9 months out of Javon through each of these divisions before ultimately leveling up to the main event. He's only 21 years old. I mean, you could spend 6 to 9 months doing that and still strap him up with the NXT title at 22 or 23, which is still crazy young. But there's no denying this guy's magnetism and his ability. The dude is a freak show, an alien type of athlete, and he's got personality plus as well. He's the type of guy who, was friends with everyone in high school. The jocks, the cool kids, the geeks, treated everyone the same, and everyone liked him for it. He was just like the centerpiece of the school. He was the golden jet from that movie with The Rock, Central Intelligence, that equivalent. I know he was a jock in that film, but that's the type of guy I assume Javon Evans was in high school, or at least could have been. There's no question that he is presently being built into being the main character of NXT, which tells me the men's division may soon undergo an even more drastic shift, especially if Oba and Trick get called up to the main roster between now and WrestleMania. But this was incredibly impressive bell to bell as a match. I'm at 4 stars, A-. Probably could have gone a shred higher if it was on a PLE, got a few more minutes. Wes acquitted himself nicely, reminding everyone why he is the longest reigning North American champion, and frankly, how far he's fallen since. Now, regarding the three-way stare down, it would seem like they're about to run back that incredible triple threat these guys had, but with 2 champions, that could get a little bit convoluted. I assume they would do the rules where whoever gets pinned loses their title or no one does if Evans is the one who eats the fall. But I'd personally be real wary about running this 3-way back with that type of stipulation. it just doesn't seem necessary. The match really should be Javon and Oba, and that really should be happening at a major PLE, either the one WrestleMania weekend, Stand and Deliver, or at least another NXT PLE in a big time venue. Like, if you're going to switch the title, that's the match that you do. So I don't know what's going to happen or how that's getting booked. I'm definitely curious about it, and it was entertaining on Tuesday, but I do want some more clarity. We had Jada Parker against Jasmine Nix. Jada was on defense for a while to start this match. I'm pretty sure Jasmine hit the Nix kick, but it was just called a Pele kick, the technical name of the move, and Parker just easily kicked out of it. So that was really confusing to me. Jada immediately rallied from there with Teardrop and Hypnotic to get the win. JC Jane and Fallon Henley berated Jazz off the mic after the bell. Nix, she continues to improve in the ring. It's clear she's progressing and really did not lose a step despite the extended injury layoff, but she's still got a long way to go just to be a competent mid-carder in NXT. She'll get there. She just has to keep up at it, and her selling is already tremendous. She deserves some credit for that. It probably helps that she played soccer, with all the selling and stuff, but I digress. Parker is obviously ready for the main event division, or at least a mid-card title run in NXT. She has been for a while. The division getting loaded up with Stephanie Vaquer and Julia, etc., really stunted her growth up the card, but hopefully now that it's thinning out just a little bit, she can make that move sooner than later. We also had Lash Legend against Henley. This was the second of two matches scheduled against the Fatal Influence Seconds. Lash got a walk and talk promo, but didn't really say much of anything. Legend delivered some stiff blows, dropped Jane from behind with a huge boot ringside. Nia Jax then ran in from the crowd out of nowhere, straight up leveled Lash from behind, and she got a huge holy shit pop that resulted in a 30-second mute because for some reason, WWE censors can't just mute words. They have to mute swaths of time. Henley hit a running leg drop and then got the win with Jax attacking Legend in the post-match, ending all of it with Annihilator. Jax later interrupted a Fatal Influence argumentative parking lot promo, and she challenged Lash for next week. I did not think I'd be talking about Nia twice in one NXT segment on this show, yet this was just the first time. This was a total pleasant surprise.
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
And it's a direct result of the Battle Royal elimination at Evolution. I'd kind of love it if Nia temporarily aligned with Fatal Influence just because they're real similar type of heels, meaning it would be great to learn that JC called her in for help. But regardless of that, I love when Battle Royal eliminations kickstart feuds. It is so underutilized in wrestling, and it is such an easy way to get two people fighting one another. So for that, I say, thank you. This was an interesting decision, as I had just assumed NXT was building to a triple threat match with Jada and Lash. Instead, you have Parker getting a squeaky clean win and Legend at least being temporarily moved out of that picture. The beatdown was well done. Nia had real vitriol for Lash here. Plus, to be frank, the extra time Jax spends in Orlando, that's a positive, right? And she looked way more fit here too, clearly continuing to get lighter. Main roster talent coming down for programs is always welcome. Lash needs this as well. It just works all the way around. Blake Monroe entered and immediately tore down Booker T for getting her name wrong last week, saying she'd put him in a medical facility if he got it wrong again. Then she turned her attention to Jordynne Grace, of course, saying she's not good enough, doesn't have enough personality to be a superstar. Then she showed a clip of Grace as a WWE extra back in the day, and she basically started body shaming her, saying Jordynne looks in the mirror and sees a woman who needs to hit the gym, not one who should be a champion in WWE like her. Monroe then showed her social media posts. I'm realizing now I'm saying her name wrong again. Monroe. At some point, I'm going to have to figure that out. By the way, isn't that the name of the Mrs. daughter? I really should know how to pronounce it. Okay, let me do this part again. Monroe then showed a bunch of social media posts that she had from back in the day when she was modeling merchandise for WWE Shop. This was before she even started wrestling. Lola Vice interrupted, telling Monroe to shut her mouth, saying she's beautiful on the outside but clearly ugly inside. Lola put herself over for representing WWE with AAA in Mexico and then dancing with Nikki Bella at Evolution, which was kind of weird. Then Jada came out saying she doesn't need others to make her relevant. She's not chasing clout. She's chasing the championship. Blake said they'd both be JG Juniors, so Grace's music hit, but it was actually Kalani Jordan answering, cutting a relatively generic promo as Lonnie always does, before challenging Blake face-to-face. Monroe immediately shot back that Lonnie finally found a personality, hit her with a big-time headbutt. That led to the faces standing tall because apparently Lonnie is back to the face side of tweener, despite nothing causing that and her actually progressing as a heel. There's a fun moment at the end where Blake used Jada's body to like help her stand, only for Jada to shove her back down. And that was kind of how the whole thing closed. I gotta be honest, this feud taking a body shaming turn, it completely threw me for a loop. And I wasn't the only one, given how shocked the crowd was that Blake was actually saying those things. I was not expecting that at all. And I'm quite surprised WWE is actually going in that direction in 2025. That's not to say it hasn't been done successfully before. We saw Nia get over massively as a babyface when Alexa Bliss bullied her about her size going into WrestleMania 34. But this is 7 years later, and the world is a different place in many ways. There was quality heel heat on Monroe going there, and the material she had actually fit the storyline perfectly because Jordan's transformation is a major part of her character, and it is one that's been mentioned but not fully explored in WWE, despite it having been gone over extensively in TNA. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had Monroe introduce this part of Grace. That way, Jordan could gain sympathy and attention and love from the crowd because she's supposed to be a babyface, but she really hasn't been getting those reactions yet. If you watched TNA for all these years, then you knew why people supported Jordan, because she did make this transformation and she did take herself from becoming an independent wrestler who most people ignored, frankly, because of how she looked, to someone who turned herself into like a Greek goddess from a body standpoint and went out there, improved in the ring, by the way, as well, and just started kicking major ass. And she's the juggernaut, right? We don't know that about her. So I'm not fully against them going this way. I was just really surprised they did. Plus, I know they never would have done it if Grace was not comfortable about it and 100% on board. So that really eased any concerns I have about her feelings. But again, I was still floored by it in the moment that a heel brought it up with such vitriol the way Blake did. Monroe is an excellent heel, and this absolutely painted her as a piece of shit. So that was successful as well. Parker was obviously the best of the bunch that came out to confront, though it was odd that she got involved here when she had already been directly working with Jane, wanting a number one contendership. It was also a weird amalgamation of talents and odd that Grace didn't storm out there and just try to beat her ass immediately. I know she was selling the chair shot from last week, but we've seen people come back in 1 week from that. The back and forth with Lonnie was really confusing. And as much as Lola has improved in the ring, bell to bell, she remains crazy, crazy weak as a character. Still a ways to go with her. Something else that was strange was a set of posts on social media coming out of this, basically all saying Monroe is clearly just a mediocre talent. That's what Toni Storm said she was going to be when they, stopped feuding, or she said eventually when they stopped feuding, when she beat the shit out of her, she'd just, go into mediocrity. Blake, Mariah, whatever you want to call her, she was never a particularly great promo in AEW. That's where she needs to improve most. She's way too slow, way too monotone. You need inflection and you need energy, and she usually doesn't bring that. So she's kind of just getting started. In other words, she's developing, which is why she's in NXT. But when you realize that Toni herself only really found her character the last few years, and she is 3 to 4 years older than Monroe, it's really nothing to worry about. Like, Blake is going to get there. This really felt like a bunch of tribal bullshit getting flung around, that there was one segment that they thought was distasteful a little bit, and the promo was not great. I mean, the direction it went and her lines individually were actually great. They were. But the delivery was not. That was the problem. And you think about it, you're like, she's 26 years old. She's only been doing this for a few years, and she hasn't really been the forefront of it. Even in AEW, her best work was when she was imitating Toni. So again, this is the area in which she needs to improve. It's why she's not on the main roster. It's why she's not going to get called up to the main roster in 6 months, like Stephanie Vaquer or Julia or someone like that. I have a feeling she's going to be in there for 18 months, maybe even longer than that. But it's because she needs to work on character. Her presentation's really solid. She's great in the ring. She knows how to kind of hit those buttons with her heel promos. It's the delivery. They really, really need to work on that. But is she a mediocre talent because Toni said so in kayfabe back in AEW? No. she's not. And you guys need to get a grip if you actually think that. Ava backstage learned that Ricky Saints only has a bruised sternum from the match with Jasper Troy, and Grace avoided any spinal injuries from the DDT onto the chair from last week that we just mentioned, but she said she may be in a neck brace for a short period of time. I presume we see both of them next week. North American Championship, Ethan Page against Santino Marella. Before this match, Santino had a backstage confrontation with Trick, saying the TNA title would be coming home soon. This main evented as Santino's first WWE match in 9 years. The crowd was super hot for both guys immediately. He countered Twisted Grin with a stunner, then got knees up on a flying hammer fist, and did a pendulum splash over the ropes outside. This dude's got a gut, but he can still move. Marella pulled out the Cobra, but Page threw the referee between them, thumbed the eye, and hit Twisted Grin. This match was better than it had any right being, a really fun main event. Notable that there were 3 separate times during the NXT broadcast that Joe Hendry flashed on the screen. The first time, I thought it was a production botch, but it happening twice more made it clear that it was purposeful. The last happened during this match, which made me think he might wind up challenging Page for the North American title and potentially even winning it. But with Ethan doing the whole Canadian gimmick, I feel like an American should probably be the one to take it off him, right? Not a Scot. So that's a little bit confusing, but of course we will see what happens there. Tatum Paxley backstage was excited about pinning Zarya last week, calling it the biggest win of her career and an opportunity to challenge Sol Ruca for the North American Championship. She credited to the doll that Izzy Dame gave her, which makes a bit more sense as to why it was loaded and actually impacted the finish last week. Izzy clarified that Tatum didn't pin the champion like she did previously, so she doesn't exactly deserve a title shot, which is true. Shawn Spears and Nico Vance then came in, giving her the good news. They got her that exact opportunity. Dame was clearly jealous, but promised they would all get her back during the match. Paxley was over the moon about all of it, but Luca Crucifino came in dejected, saying no family lasts forever. Solid enough setup for the match and music to the ears of the Silver King. Not only because Paxley is getting a title shot, but I will be live at NXT next week in Orlando. So I not only get to see Tatum wrestle a singles match against Sol Ruca, by the way, which is exciting, I get to see her in a title match. And I gotta tell you, I think there's a possibility she wins because Ruka's title reign, while it's gone on a decent amount of time and she's had some really quality matches as well, she hasn't really been cutting promos and they haven't really efforted to get her over as a character. She's over as a wrestler, not exactly a character. And then you have Izzy. She's already jealous of Tatum. It makes it seem like that breakup could happen sooner than later. So I don't know. I'm thinking a title change is legitimately possible and I might be there to witness it, but I'm setting myself up for disappointment. What I do have to say is that Shawn Michaels and NXT, they deserve credit because putting Tatum with the Culling, it has resulted in them getting more interesting as a group and her getting a lot more screen time as an individual, which has been of paramount importance for basically the last year. So this is definitely heading in the right direction. Tavian Heights fought Charlie Dempsey. NQCC again entered together. The stipulation set last week was the same as their prior match, except Heights would have to put a smile on his face while remaining in the crew should he lose. Heights powered out of a high body submission with a huge suplex, but got put in a single leg crab, fighting not to tap out. Ren Sinclair seemed to go looking for a towel. Tavian was able to escape the submission. He had a double leg takedown, rollover Death Valley driver, and a huge belly to belly suplex to get the win, and Dempsey actually shook his hand afterward. Big time babyface pop for Heights in the finishing sequence and at the bell. Real nice match overall. Heights continues to show out when he's given these opportunities. Questions remain. Why was NQCC broken up when it was working? What's going to happen with all 4 of these members? Dempsey has been incredibly stagnant. Bourne has done nothing since splitting. I know he's working a feud we're going to talk about right now, but he really hasn't done that much. Sinclair only gets 4-minute losses in matches, rarely at that, despite her talent and potential. If Dempsey is going overseas for an excursion, which I could definitely see, I could argue that NQCC should have stayed together without him. Otherwise, it remains perplexing as to what's happening with all 4 of them and why they felt the need to at least split off the 2 guys and what's going to happen now with Ren and Charlie. So again, we wait and find out what's going to happen next. Bourne sat down for an interview with Vic Joseph, saying he got medevaced after being born and was given only a 15% chance to live. He flatlined twice. He said the radiation from the ventilator that he was on as a baby took 90% of his hearing. He doesn't have trouble communicating. He's able to read lips, but he didn't speak until he was 4 years old. Bourne said he has fun with it now as an adult, doesn't let people like Lexis King get him down because he can easily block them out. Tons of personality from Miles here. A real good look overall. King later interrupted the authority figures backstage, still doubting that Bourne was actually deaf because he's able to wrestle, calling him a fraud, so that match got made for next week. While I'm really excited for Miles, not necessarily looking forward to seeing that. Josh Briggs was throwing a fit watching highlights of his title match from last week when Stax popped in saying clearly there's no loyalty in his friendship. Yoshiki Inamura then came in hot, shoving Briggs. Both guys got separated. Stax tried to tell him you can't trust family, so Inamura smacked him across the face and shoved him onto a console table, challenging him for next week. Again, not the most exciting match. Ariana Grace made sure he was okay, and I looked at them together, and I was like, this pairing could actually work on screen. And then I Googled them, and they're dating in real life. So I don't know if they put them together in this one segment because of that, and it's just a one-off, or if maybe they actually align backstage. I think that would be pretty interesting. We also saw Crucifino and Stax pontificating to randoms on this show, both upset about their family coming apart. So we'll see where that goes, but I really cannot imagine them all coming back together. The third part of that, of course, is Tony D'Angelo. He was on screen during the Hogan 10-bell salute, but we did not see him again until seconds before NXT went off the air. He was served a glass of wine in a restaurant. He told the waiter he no longer needs to be called the Don, just Tony D. Suddenly, a shadowy figure stood over him, and NXT cut off, fading to black. Similar to, but not exactly like The Sopranos. Somewhat surprised that he was not given a complete repackage and that he's still in NXT, at least for now. He looked exactly the same for the most part. If D'Angelo is not getting the call to the main roster, he better be leveling up to the main event if he's going to stay in NXT for another stretch. Otherwise, he just won't be making any real progress. The size of the shadow initially made me think Omos, but that would, of course, be random as hell, and that would require WWE using Omos, which they choose not to do. Another option I thought about could be Paul Heyman. Perhaps D'Angelo joins that crew, maybe even helps Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed in their match this weekend, strengthens the unnamed group with Seth Rollins not there. Breaker and D'Angelo, they are real close friends in reality, so that could work. Chances are neither is the answer, and this was just writing him off, but that's what came to mind at first. Chase U was outside the men's locker room later, prepared to attack Hank and Tank with chairs, knowing that's how you can get a title match. They overplanned the attack and then froze in the moment, which resulted in a decently funny face-to-face standoff between them. Hank and Tank, they were willing to give them a title match because they respected Andre Chase. He came in flabbergasted with them taking that path toward getting an opportunity. This was simultaneously the best segment involving the new Chase U, while also being horrific from a logic standpoint. Sure, champions can just give out title matches. These dudes haven't even wrestled as a tag team since June. They're 0-2 in NXT and 1-7 if you include Level Up. That's all time. Why in the blue hell are they competing for the straps? What sense does that make? I presume this will be Dark State interfering in the match, leading to an 8-man and then eventually a title match. But that doesn't make this any less ridiculous. And then these guys, right? These Chase U guys, these are the ones who were so sensitive to Andre Chase speaking down to them, yet they're ready to go attack a couple good guys with chairs. That really doesn't align. You know what I mean? So yeah, really fun segment in a silo. The best of the new Chase U, no question. But in context, real frustrating. And last, in a WWE Performance Center related note, Troy Yearwood, a really talented college athlete who got renamed Jamar Hampton. He participated both on LFG and Evolve. He posted a message to Instagram during NXT, basically calling WWE out for honoring Hogan given his racist comments in the past. Well within his right. I certainly understand where he's coming from. Dude's got a lot of potential. Being frank, it may cost him his job. So I respect him standing on business. I just don't really see that going over well. And I hope he didn't leave a career on the table for it because the potential was there. He looked real good and athletic in the ring, a lot of personality. But again, stand on business, then, respect to that, right? So that wraps up NXT this week. An enjoyable episode. I wouldn't say it was as good, of course, as the Houston week, but nevertheless, fun from start to finish, which is really what you want and expect from Tuesday nights. That moves us to Wednesday night and AEW Dynamite primarily, but of course we'll also talk Collision as well. As always, we go by storyline, so we just mix up Dynamite and Collision together to break it down in order of importance. Tony Schiavone on Collision did a single camera memorial for Hulk Hogan. It was nicely put by him. AEW certainly didn't need to do more, but it was kind of ironic to see after Tony Khan, quote, banned Hogan from his company, which was an odd thing to do in the first place, given it's not like he was ever part of AEW where he needed to then be banned from it. You know what I mean? One big note I had from Dynamite was the lack of Don Callis, and I got to say, it was refreshing, man. I enjoyed Wednesday night overall, even if I had some individual issues with the show, similar to what I kind of just said about NXT. This week for AEW, 7 of 11 matches were storyline relevant, 64%, though 2 of those were in a tag team tournament. Still, nearly 2/3. That should be the minimum benchmark for AEW. Unfortunately, it's usually the maximum, mostly the fault of the booking for Collision. But it was also notable, AEW usually gives us about 14 matches a week, something like that. There was only 11. There were only 4 matches on Dynamite. One of them, of course, went 26 minutes, which was the reason, but there was a lot of storytelling on that show. And week to week, AEW keeps like altering what it wants to be. Some weeks it's a work rate brand. Others it wants to get heavy into storytelling like WWE. I just think they need to, find a path and stick to it, is what I would say. But let's start with the big match on the show, what was promoted heaviest, of course, AEW Championship, Hangman Page defending against Jon Moxley. The stipulation here is that everyone was barred from ringside. Okay? Remember, everyone barred from ringside. The bell rang before 9 p.m., so despite being a major title rematch, it did not main event the show. I presume this was an effort to keep viewers around and stop them from bailing. Hard hitting early. Hangman took a pile driver into the top of the steel steps going into a break. He sold that well, but Mox didn't capitalize. He did bite Page twice, though, because, of course, he did. Hangman bladed, but it was too deep into his head to actually show through his hair. Hangman countered a pile driver into Deadeye on the announce table, which did not break, and they were back in the ring 25 seconds later for a tombstone pile driver onto the top of Mox's head. It literally hit the canvas for an immediate kick out. Then they did a bulldog choke countered into a crossface. Mox brings Page to the apron, and I shit you not, he lightly scratches his back like a kitten that's trying to climb up your arm. Then Hangman eats a pile driver on the apron, the hardest part of the ring, his second pile driver taken of the match. And he just goes to his knees ringside, and he gets back in the ring 10 seconds later. Then he eats a gotch pile driver, pretty sure onto the crown of his head, for a 2.5 count. What are we doing here?
What is going on?
Hangman went on a run, but after Mox countered Buckshot Lariat, Page countered back into Deadeye, knocking down the referee along the way. Despite the crystal clear stipulation, Death Riders all came down to the barricade. The 2 security guards that were there stopped the guys, but Marina Shafir, she jumped over, threw the title into the ring, belt shot on Page, 2.8 false finish. The ref woke up immediately, ejected her. Suddenly, more security was available. Where they were before, I have no idea. And then Darby Allin appears, jumps off one of the balconies, splashes all of them in the crowd, and then he just disappears. That was the pop of the match, by the way. Mox was distracted by all of this, just kind of stood around waiting for a buckshot lariat, yet he was able to immediately counter Deadeye after taking a buckshot lariat. Page countered into a Deadeye again, and then he hit buckshot lariat to retain the title in 26 minutes. Now, this was a real good match, unfortunately hampered by interference, despite a stipulation that prevented interference. It's hardly the first time that's happened in wrestling, but I absolutely loathe. You all know this. I say it all the time. I loathe when you do something like this, and then the finish comes immediately after that moment. If you did all of this and the ringside area cleared, and they wrestled for 5 more minutes and then did that finish, I would have been fine with it because it's at least somewhat logical. They were banned from ringside. Only Shafir snuck through. It ultimately didn't matter. That would have been fine. But they finished the match immediately after this. And I hate it especially when it's a babyface winning. It hampers the accomplishment of the victor, which is fine if you're protecting a face who's losing. Not so much when the heel is on the other end. Mox doesn't need to be protected. The inconsistency when it came to selling the pile drivers, that was the most objectionable part of the entire match. What this did was firmly establish Hangman as the deserving champion, and the fans reacted accordingly. I disliked this getting run on the show in this venue in front of so few people so soon after All In. But looking at the match itself, In some ways, it was better than what they did on that show because there was an extended stretch of actual wrestling. It's being overrated as everything seems to be when it comes to AEW these days, but it was a solid A match for sure. 4.25 stars, probably the match of the week. I have to think back a little bit, but if not the match of the week, tied for match of the week, no question. The Darby spot, that was easily my favorite part, and I'm actively anticipating his feud with Mox. It's going to be interesting to see how that's handled because the Death Riders still exist. So anyone who feuds with Mox, you would think, needs significant backup. On Dynamite, MJF backstage put himself over for being in Happy Gilmore too. He then knocked on the Hurt Syndicate locker room to prove that there's no angst between them, despite Bobby Lashley bullying him up against the locker and giving him the thumbs down last week. Now, why he'd knock on the door if he felt he was still in the group, I can't answer that for you. MJF apologized to Shelton Benjamin on behalf of Lashley for his action last week. Then he said Lashley is out of the equation, which I didn't understand. Like, is he injured or something? Like, why would you use that terminology? Benjamin said MVP wasn't there. The watch MJF gave him was clearly a cheap knockoff, and they would have laid him out months ago if MVP didn't have his back. Then he gave him a thumbs down, and he kicked him out of the group. What the fuck is this booking? MJF is just out of the syndicate without it being a moment? Without getting his ass kicked because Shelton said so? This after they dragged out his induction into the group twice as long as necessary? Now look, it's possible Shelton misspoke and 3 thumbs down are required to get ejected. And MJF clarifies that next week that he didn't vote thumbs down, so he's not out. It's also possible this is some kind of misdirect and it's a syndicate plan to like throw Page off the scent of them working together. That way Max can cash in the contract and it's a surprise even more so than it otherwise would be. It may play when all is said and done. But that's a lot of leniency on my part. If he is legitimately out of this group, and that was the segment they put together to extricate him from the faction, that's almost as bad as the Austin Theory, Grayson Waller shit. Even if you have MJF help FTR beat them for the titles, let's say, either reforming the Pinnacle or at least getting his former friends' backs, it's still a terrible way to end his involvement in the syndicate. And then you circle back to, what exactly was the point of doing this in the first place if MJF was going to win the contract without them and not help Syndicate at all during their title run? I know he helped them win a match. They shouldn't need his help and didn't really need his help in that match. I'm fine hitting pause and waiting to see how it plays out. But on this night, this was really, really rough. MJF confronted Hangman after his retention, suggesting he's not a good guy because he stabbed someone with a fork. Then he called Page a coward for not defending the title against him unless he executes the contract. MJF mentioned that Swerve Strickland was more of a fighting champion, trying to goad Page into giving him an extra opportunity. Hangman sniffed that out immediately. He threatened to beat his ass. He said MJF would need to beat Mark Briscoe if he wants to jump the pecking order outside of the contract. That basically gave away the main event booking for the show. It was also somewhat nonsensical because MJF literally won that match. He hadn't lost to him or anything like that. Not that MJF deserves a bonus match, but Mark certainly had not earned an opportunity at that point. So then we get the main event. Briscoe against Ricochet. Beats him in 14 minutes. This was the main event, I will mention, over the title match. Just wanted to clarify. It started with a backstage confrontation, Briscoe saying he was on a warpath and would beat his ass. Briscoe then turned and started ranting about MJF, so Ricochet had to refocus him. I liked that highlights of their random stretcher match were played as a reminder before the bell. There was a lot of GOA interference. Brody King and Bandito evened the odds late in the match. Briscoe kicked out a Vertigo. Ricochet then took a lariat and a full flip, and he ate Jay Driller for the finish. For Ricochet to lose to a guy who was not even fully focused on him this night was not a great look in terms of match setup. I'd have preferred Briscoe just cutting a promo on MJF after the win versus beforehand. And he did that anyway after the bell. He said MJF bringing up his brother's name twice means he needs to get his ass kicked. Mark brought it up the first time. You will remember he cut MJF off before he could even start saying his name. He mentioned his own brother, so MJF only brought it up once, Mark. Briscoe then said he wanted to kill MJF in cold blood, which he couldn't repent for because he wouldn't be remorseful, which means he might not see his brother again if he kills MJF. It was kind of convoluted. There was passion there. I'm really sick of wrestlers saying they want to kill each other. It's one thing, I want to kill you, like as a exclamation, but when you're actually talking about murder, It takes me out of the professional wrestling of it all. MJF's music hit. He answered on the big screen saying they'd be fighting in the main event next week. It was pre-taped, so MJF caught Briscoe with a low blow from behind, beat him down. He wore an MJF did nothing wrong shirt, which mocked Hangman. He also called Mark a coward, which was funny, of course, because he cowardly attacked him from behind. When MJF pulled out the Dynamite Diamond Ring, Page saved. MJF avoided both of their finishers, and the show ended. This was all okay. In terms of Briscoe, I could see him beating MJF, earning a title shot. Then you have MJF interfere in the title match, and that results in a triple threat. This despite him holding the contract. It's basically the Seth Rollins booking with Money in the Bank in 2015, if they go that way. But we'll have to see how this happens. Giving MJF a one-on-one title match when he separately has the contract, it would be odd. Besides that, it seems like Ricochet's push has really cooled off significantly. The stretcher match win ultimately meant nothing as expected, and he appears to just be firmly in the mid-card, not involved in any title pictures after a hot start, by the way, in AEW, but we'll see how it goes for him moving forward. On Collision, the ROH women's title was on the line. Athena retained over Alex Windsor in the main event. Toni Storm cut a promo before the match, filled with sexual innuendos as usual. As we said last week, Windsor getting this title shot lacked any logic. It was the height of absurdity. It was the match of the night on Saturday, it had to be. Windsor took a powerbomb off the barricade and O-face. Athena continues to impress. The heels attacked, so Storm saved, put Athena in a crossface chicken wing, and then Billy Starks hit her with the contract. It ended with a four-way brawl, which of course set up a tag team match between all four of them on Dynamite. The heels absolutely had to win this match, and they did, but it was a surprise for it to be Athena hitting O-face on Storm and Toni taking the fall, especially when she already beat Windsor. Athena did a couple days earlier, crystal clean, but just clean, crystal clear. Wrong turn of phrase. I guess you couldn't exactly have Alex lose twice in a row immediately after debuting, so in that way it made sense. The finish was smartly done. Athena tagged in blind. That way no one had any idea that she was legal, except for, I guess, the referee saw it. So Toni got caught with the move, not even expecting it. Athena shit-talked Toni with the contract after the bell, saying it was only a matter of time. This was one of my favorite parts of the show Wednesday, probably the least exciting match of the night, but it was only a 4-match card, and all of them were strong. The more Athena gets up on Storm, the more clear it becomes that Toni will retain the title. But if she does, who exactly is going to beat her? She's already gone through Mercedes, Megan Bayne, maybe Jamie Hayter if they figure out a way to get her back healthy with a gimmick that works. But we will find out. On Collision, the Matriarchy beat Angelico and AR Fox. There was a brief build backstage involving Fox, so I did give it relevancy credit just due to their history. But how many times is Nick Wayne and AR Fox going to fight in a match, especially with Fox never beating him despite being more talented and a veteran? Wayne forced Kip Sabian to tag him in for Kill Switch, and he got the win here. On Dynamite, Christian Cage returned to TV just 2 weeks after that All-In attack. 2 weeks. Christian called himself an asshole, which was bleeped 3 out of 4 utterances. He expressed surprise that the Patriarchy's nuts dropped, saying he spent more money on rental cars in his career than they've made from wrestling. Then he recalled the ugly things he said about Adam Copeland, asking if what he said really was so bad, given all the shit Copeland's done over the years. Cage then said that he and Copeland are different, yet they are the same. He referred to Shayna Way having a gaping hole, which was the only interesting line of his entire promo. And then he said he disowned Wayne and Sabian, saying Nick now has a dead father and one that's dead to him. Shayna then came out, distracted Christian as he was walking up the ramp. Nick hit him from behind with his title, and the guys grabbed 2 chairs. Cage was on his knees, okay? The spot was supposed to be them placing the chairs on either side of his head to lift him up, and then hitting a standing concerto. Except they put the chairs on his cheeks rather than under his chin by the neck area, so they had no momentum to pick him up. And then they swung the chairs completely behind his head, which looked horrible. And this is why the concerto is done from a flat position, because you can make it look realistic without delivering the actual damage. This again speaks to AEW's lack of preparation and production. This should have been planned out step by step to ensure it came off looking right. It simply did not. But even before that, I cannot express how painful it was to listen to that promo from Christian. He meandered. It went on way too long. He constantly stumbled over his words. He even completely lost his place in the climax. It was straight up bad. Hopefully he's now out an extended period of time from this. He's not back in another 2 weeks. This also made me question, what happened with Copeland? He makes his huge return and now he's just waiting for Christian to come around so that they can tag again. They really have nothing else for him to do. I know the gimmick with FTR is that he's banned from hitting them and so on and so forth, But like, why is he not on the show wrestling other people? Like, why is he not around? This is a star. You just brought him back. You got to capitalize on that. On Collision, Chris Statlander backstage said she knows Willow Nightingale wants to move on and start fresh, but she could have at least thanked her for stepping in front of the Death Riders for her and also being her best friend ever. Stat said Willow reminded her that she doesn't need a friend to be tough, strong, and athletic, and I believe she introduced a third catchphrase, "You can't stop Stat." It was a solid, sarcastic promo from her, but if it doesn't result in a legitimate one-on-one blow-off match between them, then what are we doing? It should probably be Stat beating Willow at this point. Nightingale has been massively underutilized of late. Stat, she's real talented in the ring, but the more I see of her try character work, the less I believe in her long-term. On Dynamite, Willow was annoyed Thekla ignored her challenge, saying that she got a match booked with her anyway. Zero mention of Stat, despite getting the promo cut on her just a few days earlier. Nothing from Thekla fighting her, attacking her after this. I don't know what they're doing. Nightingale has so much personality, it literally oozes out of her. I didn't completely love this promo, but it didn't matter because she keeps you engaged as a viewer. You want to watch her wrestle. You want to watch her speak. That's why she's one of my favorites in this company. AEW Tag Team Title Eliminator, 2 matches were held. The first on Collision, Bang Bang Gang beat Big Bill and Brian Keith. You know, Bill is actually being underutilized on this team as long as Chris Jericho is not around. It made sense when he was on screen, but they've just dropped that part of the story. Juice Robinson trimmed his sideburns, also put some stubble back on his face. He looked much better. Real rough promo from Austin Gunn preceding this. Enjoyable finish, though. Gunn aided Juice by tilting over a pinning combination, which was really smart booking. It showed that they work well together. On Dynamite, the Young Bucks beat the Outrunners. They were treated as a generic team without an entrance, and the lower third card was a template. It wasn't even filled in. Fans chanted jobbers at them. Nice B-level match here. I thought the Bucks would be so down on their luck, the Outrunners would actually win. And frankly, that might have been better booking, but it just depends where their story and their characters are going. They probably should win the tag team title sooner than later to basically force themselves back into relevancy. Kazuchika Okada celebrated with the Bucks after the bell, and it was blatantly obvious what was going to happen as soon as he came out. The trio randomly attacked the Outrunners for no reason. Swerve saved. Commentary completely gave this away by naming him before the attack began. Okada looked stupid, taking 6 alternating punches from them. The Bucks saved him from house call, so Swerve stomped them outside, and that set up what I assume is going to be a 6-man match next week or at some point soon. Stoke cut a great promo on Collision, calling Robinson a side piece. It was his best mic work since joining FTR by a mile. More of this, less of the tongue-in-cheek comedy crap. He cut another on Dynamite, which unfortunately was more of that. But FTR behind him were all kind of, bigging themselves up, I guess is the best way to put it. The Bucks then came in, and the heels seemingly got on the same page for the first time. On Collision, the TNT title was on the line. Dustin Rhodes retained over Lee Moriarty in a 16-minute match, a bit long. It was a random matchup without real reason, but I wouldn't say Moriarty didn't deserve it. He is the ROH Pure Champion. Of course, that title wasn't on the line for reasons, and they don't really talk about that title on AEW television. Dustin won with a small package. Callis and Kyle Fletcher came out obviously wanting a title shot, angry that someone got a chance before him. Fair point. They're fighting next week. That should be a title change. On Collision, Anthony Bowens beat Max Caster in 2 minutes during the latest open challenge. This was our expectation given the booking last week leading into it. Caster's chant has gotten over with the audience, so a shred of credit there. Bowens worked heel because the fans were supporting Caster. He even continued beating him down after the bell. That led to Billy Gunn getting involved, pulling him off. Bowens looked like he was going to attack Gunn, but instead he shook his head and left. Doing a double turn with these guys, it's quite a decision. Huge wasted opportunity with Bowens when he got reintroduced. We've discussed that previously. I don't mind him working heel with this gimmick, but it's only become necessary due to a failure to capitalize on the initial character refresh. Now, maybe these guys just come back together as a heel team, but yeah, man, none of this has really worked. And Caster, I know he is a joke, like that's the gimmick, but he's also turned into a joke. He has no aura. You don't take him seriously at all. And it just seems like his character's like gone. I don't know what they're going to do with him. On Collision, Hologram, Tomohiro Ishii and the Outrunners beat Hechicero, Lance Archer, and the Infantry in an 8-man tag team match that for some reason was worth $400,000. Total and utter waste of time. These matches on TV are the pinnacle of lazy booking. This roster is enormous. It's talented. Why can the B show not get booked as anything important? Why can't there be actual storylines on the show beyond the TNT Championship and leftover stuff from Dynamite. And then you have Kyle O'Reilly come out and do a really strange comedy routine backstage. Who is this for? Like, seriously, who is this for? On Collision, the Triangle of Madness beat 3 jobbers, including Rachel Ellering, in 3 minutes. Their presentation was solid, but this accomplished nothing. Queen Aminata came down after with a chair, I guess to protect them. It was enough to have all 3 of them run away. Megan Bayne then attacked her from behind, hit her running Liger Bomb. All of it just felt like stuff that happened. And that wraps up the week in AEW. Like I said, real solid show Wednesday. Not one of their best, but definitely entertaining, quality match between Hangman and Mox. And I am interested to see where some of these things are going, but there were definitely concerns with the booking this week. And again, I can't stress this enough. Collision, it is just an entire waste of time. It really is week to week. It is difficult to watch that. And really, it makes it easy to kind of get through it a lot faster than I otherwise would if it was a compelling program, which it unfortunately is not. So yeah, that concludes this episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. As mentioned, we already have our WWE SummerSlam Ultimate Preview show in the podcast feed. And of course, we will have both a Night 1 and Night 2 instant analysis of WWE SummerSlam this Saturday and Sunday immediately after the show goes off the air. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And that, by the way, includes YouTube. You can find us there at Getting Overcast. Full-length audio episodes, also full-length video interviews, all of that on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Please remember on the way out that Getting Over
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show that we will factor into our coverage. And you can vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding both nights of WWE SummerSlam, and that will get factored into our instant analysis episodes. Lastly, do not forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We would greatly appreciate your support. That wraps up this edition of the show. We will be back Saturday and then Sunday. It is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.